managed care begins to get a very big bubble. We think there's some opportunity in there, and we looked at some of the metrics that exist. We flagged it as red because we think there's a very clear need to focus some strategy around there in the short order as well to get some of those contracts where they need to be. We start still looking at into the expense side of the hospital. When you look at your monthly financial statements, clearly you have the revenue side of it, you know kind of what the gross charges are. We do a fun thing in hospitals where we contractualize that, so what we charge is not what we're actually going to anticipate collecting. And then from there, we got to balance the expense end of it. So in a desktop review, we look at a couple of key things: supply chain. What's the cost of supplies, and how do we get those supplies here, and how are we maximizing our group purchasing organization, as Cindy mentioned. Productivity, how are we managing our labor expenses? When you look at the P&L side, the two biggest items that we can control as a management team are going to be our supplies and our labor. So we have a lot of very clear, definitive benchmarks about those two areas. So we went into those elements. And then we also got into the HR aspect that Cindy mentioned, and then some of the insurance risk components. But at the supply chain level, a couple of challenges there. We have a really good affiliation with Baylor that we want to understand how to maximize that. Baylor went through a transition in their GPOs. It went from a premier product, Premier is a GPO in the market area, to another GPO called Med Assets. We think that presented some challenges for us here at Illinois. So we saw from the information that was provided that in the GPO world, the way it works is all these different large GPOs have relationships with manufacturers. And there are a key couple of distributors that bring all of those manufacturers together and then distribute that out based on the orders needed. And the way that's priced is there's actually a menu item that's electronic, and they either point you at one of those GPO prices, so I know I'm going to get a Premier price, and I'm going to get an Innovation price, and I'm going to get a Med Asset price, etc. So it's a constant process of trying to monitor, are we pointed at the right table? So what we saw is we kind of pointed at a couple of different tables. So there's some opportunity there, I think, working with Baylor in that affiliation relationship to make sure that as a key affiliate, they were maximizing the supply chain opportunities in their GPO. So we had a lot of great dialogue with the team about those components. We took a look at your insurance products, what we classify as risk products. Generally speaking, Glenrose had some great experience over the last couple of years. The rates are well marketed. In fact, the one thing that we saw that may have been an issue was the helipad. There's some ways to address that, but making sure we're on the certificate of insurance by the guys that come in here as a named carrier. So that's just some general blocking and tackling. The team actually has already confirmed that is the case, so we're covered there. So very good to be in the green. Sometimes we see insurance in the red. It's not surprising to see that. So that's why we always like to focus on here. HR, we looked at your medical benefits, looked at your retirement plan, looked at some of the HR strategy as well. And we flagged that as yellow because as a standalone facility, again, from a strategy perspective, there's a significant cost providing coverage to our employees. And as an employer in the community, that's an issue that we all have to address, no matter if it's the hospital, the school district, city, whatever it may be. Those are a constant thing that we have to kind of grapple with. And hospitals typically have greater utilization of healthcare than non-hospital type employers. So sometimes our experience is a little bit different. And being standalone and being somewhat of a self-insured aspect of it, there's some things there that need to be addressed. And that's going to be compounded with the Reform Act that's in place now as well. So we identified this as an area of focus for the team. It's a known aspect. We talked a lot about that as well. There's nothing that was outside of known discussion areas, but it is an area that needs to be some focus on. Likewise, from a benefit standpoint, explore some opportunities to leverage different expenses around the benefits. Retirement plans in particular, that could be a good strategy to take a look at too. Similarly, as we looked at productivity, productivity is the measurement of how we manage the workload in the hospital, whether we're in housekeeping or at the nursing care side, on the unit, or in surgery, ER, administration, HR, whatever the functionality may be from a department standpoint. How are we managing that labor? How are we measuring that labor? And where might there be some opportunities? The first thing to note to say is, one is that the hospital is actually measuring it, which is a great place. You have a management tool, a productivity system that looks at each cost center, that has some standards wrapped around those cost centers, and we're looking at it proactively as a team every month. There are a lot of hospitals across this country that do not do that. They simply don't have a mechanism to capture their workload. They manage towards a budget number. It's really delayed. They just don't have a handle on it. And that ultimately, as I said before, is one of the biggest expense items that we have to try to control from the management standpoint. So the fact that we have a tool is an extremely positive thing. There's some recommendations to look at moving that tool up to more of a bi-weekly process, time with payroll. And we understand that there's some IT issues around that. And obviously there's action items around IT moving forward. But that's an area you want to keep at the table. We want to keep focused around that, and that's why there's a yellow aspect of that. We also went through the exercise of trying to benchmark the various cost centers. The challenge that we have in that is because it is a smaller hospital, there are certain areas that there just isn't any practical way to benchmark. Certain areas you can benchmark against similar sized facilities. When you get down to poor staffing, when you get down to 1 or 2 employees in a department, there's simply no way to benchmark that. It's either do we need that or don't need that, how does that work from a process standpoint. So from a productivity aspect, we didn't evaluate the process, we really just looked at our numbers, our carrying costs. Do we have tools in place? Are we managing that? Do we understand that? Those are all very positive things. Again, it's not a green. We rarely ever see productivity in green. In fact, in all my 18 years, I've only seen one organization I could say was in the green. And that was a big institution that put a lot of effort behind it. And then kind of finally landing on overall strategy. So as we step back a little bit and then kind of understand organizationally what we're doing, kind of walk you through the story of what was paying for us, how does that fit into our overall strategy? What are we doing as an organization? We've got a new board, got lots of emotion about that in the community. We're passionate about healthcare in the community. Do we understand organizationally where it is we need to go? Does that fit then with what we're doing operationally? And we think there's an opportunity there. We definitely think that the team's got focus on a number of items. But organizationally, I think there's an opportunity to really understand vision-wise, what does that mean for us? As a board, what are we trying to accomplish? Obviously, we're new as a board. We've taken on a lot of stuff. We're asking a lot of great questions. But ultimately, if we went around the room and asked each of you, where are we going as an organization? Can we get consensus across everybody on the same answer? And the answer to that's probably no. So that's why we say, from an overall strategy perspective, there's some opportunity here, I think, to really drive some vision. We find organizationally, hospitals are like any other business. If we're all focused on the same thing, we're all aligned to that same vision, then organizationally, the sky's the limit. We can execute, we can develop strategy tactically behind that and really move an organization in the right direction. And that kind of lands into some of our key recommendations that